Let's have a talk, let's have a chat, talking about a little this and that. Hello and welcome to another episode of This and That. I am your host, Mary Easterling, and we are going to continue on our Big Reveal 2 Under the Hood with One Spirit, One Lord, kind of looking at the engine thing. And we are looking at the engine under the hood here, and they're entitling this something called Deep State. I told you at the end of our last episode that we'd be looking at the Deep State. Ooh. So, before I begin, however, to listen to the last episode of the Big Reveal 2 Under the Hood, looking at the engine under the hood, go to talkingaboutthисandthat.wordpress.com and click on the podcast link. These things are not the work of Bob Newman, so they will not be in our blog. You can only listen. You cannot look. So, something called Deep State. When POTUS ran, what did he say to us? I'm going to destroy the Deep State. He did, by replacing it with himself. He's the new Deep State. This is the new thing. And I make that statement up front because as we go through this may be in two parts. This may be a one-shot. We'll see. We'll see how long it gets. As we go through this, you'll see the connection between both sides of this equation. So, One Spirit, One Lord begins. What is a state? A state of being, like water, is a state of being of liquidity that at temperature can change its state to gaseous or freeze to a solid for a nice, refreshing, cold glass of water. A state is an entity that governs a populace electing to be one within its borders as defined by survey and agreed upon by all generally. The other definition of the state would be nationally. That's where they talk about an enemy of the state. Well, which one? What are you, the enemy of Massachusetts or Rhode Island or Florida or Georgia or Kansas or Missouri or, Texas? God help you. California? Oh, so you're hiding in all the burned out places, right? No. Just no. An enemy of the state would be an enemy of the federal government or the enemy of the government of the nation. So that's also considered the state. So, what if there is a quote-unquote state that is deeply embedded in all the nations that drives people who are influencers and know how to push all the right buttons to make things happen, to promote a response amidst a particular populace? Meet what one person feels is the core. This person feels Committee of 300, apparently also known as Club of Rome, is at the core of this. There have been a lot of cores discussed. And if you go to onespiritOneLord.wordpress.com, you will find that they have a large list and a plethora of pages, something called Man's Agenda or the Agenda. It's an agenda. But that's the point, is it's an agenda. We have a plan. We're going to work the plan the work, and work the plan. And they've been doing it for like forever and ever and ever and ever and ever and ever and ever, as I covered in our last episode. So, how does it work? It works hand in glove with all sorts of think tanks all over the world. Here is a list of the goals published in, and we used this the last time, so they're taking their stuff from this again. Conspirators Hierarchy, the Story of the Committee of 300 by John Coleman. This is the list of goals. What are the goals of the secret elite group, the inheritors of Illuminism? Moriah Conquering Wind. Now, folks, full stop. There is a song. My mother has dementia. She's in hospice at home. And so we have all this music. And one of the group sings the song, and they call the wind Moriah. And they call the wind Moriah. Right. I've never heard it as Moriah Conquering Wind till I read it in parentheses just now. The cult of Dionysus, the cult of Isis, Catharism, Bogomilism. This elite group that also calls itself the Olympians. They truly believe they are equal in power and stature to the legendary gods of Olympus, who have, like Lucifer, their god, set themselves above our true God. So the writer is a Christian who blew the whistle on stuff he knew. Interesting. They absolutely believe they have been charged with implementing the following by divine right divine right? Okay, so what's their list? What are their goals? Are you seated? You might want to sit down for this one. Number one, a one world government, new world order with a unified church and monetary system under their direction. Who? The Olympian, the 300, the all of them, the short list, the long list, all the lists. Right. Not many people are aware that one world government began setting up its quote unquote church in the 1920s and 1930s, for they realized the need for a religious belief inherent in mankind to have an outlet and therefore set up a quote unquote church body to channel that belief in the direction they desired. Full stop. Right here, folks, is the basis of the success of the teachings talked about in the prosperity gospel and the dominion movement. Go back and listen to episodes 13 through 15 of The Big Reveal 2 Under the Hood at talkingaboutthistandthat.wordpress.com. And some of this is Bob Newman stuff, so you'll find it in the blog. Some of this is not. So you ought to go to the podcast first and see if there's a blog for it. 2. The utter destruction of all national identity and national pride. Full stop again. Right now, we are becoming ashamed as a nation due to the antics of our elected officials. Oh, but see, we're not the only nation that's gone through this. Oh, no. The Brits had it. Europe used to be in national boundaries. They're not now. You can drive from one end to the other on the Autobahn and not have to worry about passports. Why? European Union, honey. That's why. They're all one co-op. They're all one coalition. They're a sector block of people groups. They have not taken their final step. Number 3, destruction of religion, and more especially the Christian religion, with one exception, their own creation mentioned above. Again, full stop. This, by and large, has been done. True biblical Christendom in this nation is considered antiquated, especially one that hears the voice of the Lord in the midst. Folks, true biblical Christianity is not the path to wealth. In fact, it says if you have wealth, that wealth is to be used to embetter and uplift your impoverished neighbors, which means you ain't going to be so wealthy. That's right. If you have good health, you work and you do what you can to help out those who can't do for themselves, which makes you a little less healthy, but you're getting by. That's right. Call it close read of scriptures, and you will come away with an entirely different ideology than what has been being preached since, believe it or not, the 20s and 30s, 1920s and 30s, thank you, here in the good old US of A. Yes! Number 4, control of each and every person through means of mind control, and what Brzezinski called, quote-unquote, technotronics, which would create human-like robots and a system of terror, besides which Felix Dzerzhinsky's Red Terror will look like children at play. Okay. We're already in the middle of robotics, and with our educable ARTI, or artificial intelligence, this has now become the age of the technotronics. It's already started. See, you don't need robots when you can AI digital on the internet and make it believable. Yerp. So, add to that marketing and programming. They have been increasingly pushing a gospel not of God in movies and TV series for years, decades even. Star Wars plays off theosophy. God is force, and there is the light and the dark, the Jedi, the Sith. Thing is, the Jedi and Sith manipulate the force. The believer does not manipulate God. Oh. 5. An end to all industrialization and the production of nuclear-generated electric power in what they call, quote, the post-industrial zero-growth society, unquote. Exempted are the computer and service industries. United States industries that remain will be exported to countries such as Mexico, where abundant slave labor is available. Unemployables in the wake of the industrial destruction will either become opium/heroin or cocaine addicts, or become statistics in the elimination process known today as Global 2000. Full stop again. We did this. Trump thinks his tariff war will reverse this. Get the businesses back into our country. He's just a pawn in the hands of these other people. This is to give these people a chance to believe they will beat the system before the system crushes us like a grape. Let them think they can win. Just about the time they think they win, we pound them into the dust. That's the idea. Number 6, legalization of drugs and pornography. All right, full stop again. Right now, we have the legalized marijuana. They have something called medical marijuana, and I, the host, have a mother who has not only dementia but Parkinson. Overseas research of cannabis, what marijuana is, it's cannabis, has shown us that this nifty little weed has a veritable pharmacopoeia of positive stuff. It's something that floods our system with too much of things that we already make in ourselves, which is why we're receptive to this. This is a natural substance, like the original coca. Cocaine is simply coca that has been dried out, cut down, because if you had this in its raw form, it'd kill you. It's just too much, too much, too much. If you brew a tea from the leaves, you breathe better at altitude. You have a little more energy, see? It's like tepid. But once you do what they do to it, they're making something that's like rocket fuel. So then it gets cut with all sorts of strange things that can kill you. They do the same thing with marijuana. Now, pharmacologically, marijuana has been shown, if you knew how to use it, it's been shown to be able to help combat the stuff that starts you in on that cycle of Alzheimer's. It has been shown to help. Go on YouTube, and there's a thing where a guy with it's in spasm and he's Parkinson's, and somebody gives him one of these tubes of this stuff, and he puts it in his mouth, and he kind of gets to the point where he can just kind of like falls back onto the couch. And over a 20-minute sped up, you watch him relax to come out of the spasticity. And suddenly he sits up and he's like, "Oh, I smell something. What's for lunch?" He's hungry. When he meets the person with the stuff at the door, he doesn't talk right. He doesn't move right. He's twisted. He's not that after he's put the stuff in his system. And I know what this is that he's used. I've seen it. I've worked with it. I use this on my mother. We're in the medical marijuana. If it wasn't so expensive, I would be using higher doses. I would be probably helping her to be less out of it in dementia land and more at the party. But the dosages are what get you. In the end, this is a perfectly good thing for somebody who's in hospice. It makes them, depending on what you have given them, the kind of medical marijuana you give them, it can calm them down. It can even give them an appetite to want to eat. So this isn't, you have to understand, things are not all bad. It's how you use them. It's how you're packaging them. So this is a hard road to hoe, because right now there's the legalization for marijuana, and it's being pushed. Sadly, though it has its uses medicinally, they want to do this recreationally. The only reason why I'm kind of for it is because there are a lot of people who cannot use this as medicine because their conditions that could be helped by components in this are not on the list, so they can't get it medically under a doctor's supervision. So the only way they can get relief is to go buy it. And in the end, we can use this and we can make it a cash cow like tobacco. We can regulate how it's processed so that you're not getting street weed. And by the way, if you have to, and your state allows the recreational use of, buy from vendors, buy from the state licensed vendors. They have barcodes. They have accountability. They take you back to the seed. You can trace the steps, how this was processed. Don't do street weed. You really don't know what you're getting. Somebody breaks it out of their backyard. You don't know what you're getting. Number one, you don't know its potencies, its strengths, and you don't know what else they put in it to give you a really good time. Like, I believe I can fly off a balcony, and then you just fall to your death flat. All she did was smoke one stick. Come to find out, they put something else in that street marijuana. So some of these things are really double-edged because up until a certain point, tincture of cannabis was something you could get from your doctor for agitation and inability to sleep, anxiety, etc. But the doctors knew how to dose it. Now, after a certain after a certain whole big thing went on with the Mexicans and the marijuana, I'm telling you, this goes right back to ethnic, racial tensions. The black man and the joint, the Mexican and the marijuana, and they're bringing it in, and they're going to destroy our kids. No, what this is white Anglo-Saxon Protestants don't want no Mexican wetbacks coming in and because they just don't want it any more than they want the blacks to rise up and do well. Remember, we're colonials, we're white, and we have no morals. So, number 7, depopulation of large cities according to the trial run carried out by the Pol Pot regime in Cambodia. It is interesting to note that Pol Pot's genocidal plans were drawn up here in the United States by one of Club of Rome's research foundations. It is also interesting that the committee is presently seeking to reinstate the Pol Pot butchers in Cambodia. To which I respond, I'm not surprised. Myanmar is going through hell right now because, yes, certain people want to put into play a suppressive, repressive regime. Like, you can only control these people this way. They're trash. They're taking up the earth. We need to eliminate them. And if you went and look at the players, you'd find that most of them are European. A good percentage are going to be American, and most of them are going to be white. Are you starting to get a dim picture here? Number 8, suppression of all scientific development except those deemed beneficial by the committee. Especially targeted is nuclear energy for peaceful purposes. Particularly hated are the fusion experiments presently being scorned and ridiculed by the committee and its jackals of the press. Now, full stop, because this guy's going to say something. I don't know. I welcome anybody who wants to do the research. He writes, development of the fusion torch would blow the committee's conception of, quote-unquote, limited national resources right out the window. A fusion torch properly used could create unlimited, untapped natural resources from the most ordinary of substances. Fusion torches are legion and would benefit mankind in a manner which is as yet not even remotely comprehended by the public. Now, somewhere else, something about a fusion torch could take a brick of rock and create a plethora of aluminum, something like that. See, what we have is nuclear fission, not fusion. And this is nuclear energy for peaceful uses, like powering things. Yes, this is something to think about. The fusion tech, as has been advanced repeatedly, dropped due to losses incurred by big oil. But as we keep pulling both oil and water out of the mantle, we're collapsing our planet's crust, causing more earthquakes. And have you noticed the rise in this? Sinkholes. They're showing up all over the world now. Right, because we're depleting things. We're drilling. We're undermining our Earth's crust. That's right. And where do a lot of these sinkholes end up happening? Oh, where there are a lot of hominids that can be killed by it. So, I mean, big oil, big coal, the industrialists, the ones that are trying to pollute our atmosphere. Are they polluting our atmosphere? Number 9, caused by means of limited wars in the advanced countries and by means of starvation and diseases in third world countries, the death of 3 billion people by the year 2000. People they call, quote unquote, useless eaters. The Committee of 300 commissioned Cyrus Vance to write a paper on this subject of how best to bring about such genocide. The paper was produced under the title, The, quote unquote, Global 2000 Report, and was accepted and approved for action by President Carter for and on behalf of the U.S. government, and accepted by Edwin Muskie, the then Secretary of State. Under the terms of the Global 2000 Report, the population of the United States is to be reduced by 100 million by the year 2050. Full stop. We got rid of Roe v. Wade. The OBGYN industry is now hiccuping all over the place. They're suppressing reports of things that might actually be happening. And then you have COVID, H1N1, and our newest thing, measles. Measles, mumps, rubella, the MMR. All kids had it. It was mandatory for you to go to school. You had to have it. They didn't care if you were a religious organization and you felt your soul was going to go to hell once you took the. You had to have it, otherwise you couldn't go to public school. But there are these pockets of people that have all their little Christian stuff or their other stuff, and they don't believe in the vaccine. And then we have the new guy, Mr. Kennedy. My gosh, we've got a Kennedy back in office. Oh, this guy doesn't believe in vaccine. And it was on the news that he told a committee people shouldn't be taking medical advice from him. You do realize what Robert Kennedy Jr. is the head of, like the CDC, the Center for Disease Control, the medical community, and we shouldn't be listening to him for medical advice. Right. How many more have to die? It's all part of the plan. 10. To weaken the moral fiber of the nation and to demoralize workers in the labor class by creating mass unemployment. As jobs dwindle due to post-industrial zero-growth policies introduced by the Club of Rome, demoralized and discouraged workers will resort to alcohol and drugs. The youth of the land will be encouraged by means of rock music and drugs to rebel against the status quo, thus undermining and eventually destroying the family unit. In this regard, the Committee of 300 commissioned Tavistock Institute to prepare a blueprint as to how this could be achieved. Tavistock directed Stanford Research to undertake the work under the direction of Professor Willis Harman. This work later became known as, quote-unquote, the Aquarian Conspiracy. That is its own program. Trust me. See, One Spirit, One Lord isn't the only one that's been down some of these rabbit holes. I just thought I'd let them give me their research down the rabbit hole. Because if I wanted to go down the rabbit hole, I'm not sure how much of the engine we want to take, folks. This little experiment has been leveled at the black community with glorious success. Suppression of that one race and marginalization of all others keeps them in a demoralized state. That's my response. Are you black? Are you what's known as an Afro-American, like that generation from the slaves? Do your elders and their elders and the other elders and more elders upon elders keep telling you, you was a slave? Rise up and get some of your, rebel against the white man, right? No, keep rebelling against the white man. And the white man in return is just going to go, well, you in it again, aren't you? Slip the handcuffs on you and put you back in the big house. Guys, once for any reason they fingerprint you and they process you through the judicial system, you can take your future and kiss it goodbye. Decent folk are going to go, you were a criminal. I can't trust you. And you won't get a job. White folk will go, you're black. You have been in the big house. I am not about to hire you. I have a reputation to maintain. I'm white. Again, you don't have a job. Fish gotta swim and you gotta eat. What you gonna do? Sleep on a grandma's sofa for the rest of your life? No. Your pride is gonna come in at some point. Be like, I'm 60 and I can't get a job. But of course you can't get a job. You've been incarcerated. You've been in the big house. Nobody wants to hire you now. So now you can't get a job, but you still got to eat. So now you're going to do what? Go right back out there to the same criminal element you were involved with before. Usually it's going to be, if you were young, it's going to be gang. If you were older, you might have got into some sort of white-collar criminal thing. Or you got caught with a bit of weed on your person. Oh, yes. You can even have medical marijuana license from one state and go on a road trip and take your stuff with you. You could be ex-military with PTSD, and you have medical marijuana to treat it. And you go across borders, and you get stopped because you're black, and they find your stash on you, and you flip your card. And they go, yeah, but not around here. Click! And now all your military is besmirched because you in the big house. Do you get it? Do you feel like you're wearing a target on your back? Well, you are. Thanks to these people, you, my dear black person, are a lab rat. The United States is your petri dish. Do you get it? And it doesn't help all the gangster rap stuff that your younger people are liking to listen to. It just fuels the hate. So then they get out there and they riot and they do stupid and they get caught and they get put away. They get a criminal record. Now they can't get it. Does this sound like it's becoming a broken record cycle? It is. 11. To keep people everywhere from deciding their own destinies by means of one created crisis after another and then, quote-unquote, managing such crisis. This will confuse and demoralize the population to the extent where, faced with too many choices, apathy on a massive scale will result. In the case of the United States, an agency for crisis management is already in place. It's called the Federal Emergency Management Agency, better known as FEMA, whose existence I first disclosed in 1980. There will be more on FEMA as we proceed, according to this man's book. We believe, full stop, we believe we control the weather, and maybe to an extent we did, but now God has stepped in, and the weather is really ramped up. The reason of much of our national debt is twofold. First off, we did Obamacare. The government has to subsidize that. Where do you think that money's coming from? It's bleeding the middle-class taxpayer dry, making them the new poor. Then, and see, POTUS right now is like going, wow, we're in debt because of Biden. Biden got into debt because of Trump. Okay, wait a minute. Let's take a set. Let's back off and don't look at the men and the policies and the administration. Look at what was happening around in America. As Trump was in office, there was this whole business with COVID, right? COVID. Trump inherited the last guy who was working on COVID. In fact, COVID hit just as Trump was getting into office. A lot of people said he was way too slow to try and stem the business because he didn't think it was such a big deal. He didn't take it seriously. We lost a lot of lives as a result. That was just one. But COVID disrupted so many things on so many levels, we still haven't recovered. So now, Trump's administration bumbles along with COVID, and just about the time Trump left, we had this anomaly in the weather pattern, and it was all over the news. There was a bubble in the U.S., and a bubble in Europe, and a bubble elsewhere. I think the bubble was over the Atlantic as well. These three hot zones, super hot zones, driving heat waves, driving fires, driving this, driving that, driving drought. And during Biden's reign, for 3 straight years, every summer was these three hot zones. If you go back and you look on the internet, Google this, and go look at an expanded map that takes the globe and it makes it into its zones, and you look and you see these three hot zones, and you keep looking at it every summer, fire, 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 every summer. And during Biden's reign, we didn't have fires in one place. We had fires all over the place. And also during Biden's reign, we had the strange hurricane that started in the Gulf, hit the landmass, and drove itself up. And everybody's going, the HAARP, They were playing they were manipulating the weather. It never does this. It never does. We're not having hurricanes right now. Guess what's happening? In the same place. In the Carolinas, flooding. In Mississippi, flooding. Go look at the weather. What hurricane? Florida isn't in hurricane season yet. This is not hurricanes. This is weather cells that are going through. Washes. In the meantime, we have fires because we're tinderbox. It's flood and drought. And it's switching back and forth. Listen, we're good. We're not that good. I'm sorry. Talk to a meteorologist. Do some study on weather patterns and realize they cannot be telling you the truth about the weather control business. There are certain things that we can do to try and create thunderstorms. But at certain times of the year, we don't want to do that because we create supercells. Oh, then you've got twisters. And the twister pattern isn't the same. Have you noticed? So what do you think we were doing? One state after another was looking at the Fed going, FEMA, 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 FEMA. And so, of course, Trump's going, well, see the deficit? Well, yes, we're paying for all this insurance garbage when we should have done tort reforms, when we should have passed a law on insurance companies stating you must allow a person with a pre-existing illness that loses one coverage with one company that has to take up with another to switch their policy. Yes, you're going to inherit a lemon. You're going to just deal with it. No, Barack Obama, they say, had a failed attempt at something that would have been much better. Why was it failed? Well, because Congress didn't like what he originally wanted to do, which is socialism. Socialism can lead to tyranny. It can lead. You have to be of a particular mindset nationally to pull that off. And don't talk to me about the Netherlands and all that, and Denmark or whatever. They are a capitalist and socialist society. They say they're happy, but do you know what their tax rate is across the board? How happy are they? How well off are they? How involved are they? How big a player are they? Right. You lose your player status when you go into this. That's what they're trying to do with us. But no, we just heard yesterday that part of the plan is to get the U.S. and the Russia to be ally axis and be the world controllers and to manage things through wars. Okay, fine. Number 12, to introduce new cults and continue to boost those already functioning, which includes rock quote-unquote music, gangsters such as the filthy, degenerate Mick Jagger's quote-unquote Rolling Stones. Excuse me. They're bad. Jagger's a saint. He's practically Christian compared to what's being played now. Oh, but you've got to have the door open. Mick Jagger? Liver lips? He's not the baddie. No. Go back to the boys from Liverpool. Those boys. Go back to Mr. Pelvis. Go back to that southern boy. Go back. Oh, gosh. Roll out the barrel. Let's roll out the barrel tonight. Go look that up. You'll find that it is quite old. Google it. Roll out the barrel. Go look at the lyrics. Prohibition. The booze thing. It created a boondoggle for the liquor market in the form of cut alcohol. Oh, it deregulated it. Okay, fine. Number 12 continues. A gangster group much favored by European black nobility. Rolling Stones is a gangster group? Oh my gosh. Oh, and I'm sorry, and it began with the boys from Liverpool. Okay, and all of Tavistock created quote-unquote rock group, which began with the Beatles, quote-unquote, to continue to build up the cult of Christian fundamentalism begun by the British East India Company servant Darby, which will be misused to strengthen the Zionist state of Israel through identifying with the Jews through the myth of, quote-unquote, God's chosen people, and by donating very substantial amounts of money to what they mistakenly believe is a religious cause in the furtherance of Christianity. Oh, my giddy aunt! It's in black and white. Yes, Queen Lizzie I and the British East India Company. I think she was the first limited liability corporation. I think she was the first to pioneer it. You know what they were doing over there? Opium. Yeah. Do you know what else the the Brits were doing? They would go into China, and they helped fuel the opium crisis in China. And then they bought the puppy back to Britain. Ever hear of this one? The milk of the puppy, the juice of the puppy, not puppy, poppy, as in heroin, opium. Where do you think Mac came from, folks? That white stuff? You snort it, or you cook it, and you mainline it, and you just like, if you do a little too much, you're like, and you're dead. Narconon. That's a new thing for pharmacy. You can buy it anywhere now because they expect people to be overdosing on drugs. Fentanyl. That was a pharmaceutical that got leached into private business industry for illicit drug use. In fact, it's our new opium. It's stronger than the opium, but it has nastier side effects and it'll kill you quicker. Now, God's chosen people, Zionism. One of the biggest saws that Saudis have screamed about over the years, especially the Palestinians, is, well, this was where we were living, and then these people came in and set up a government and shoot us all out of town. Facts. It wasn't as developed as everybody says it was. Israel was pretty much a desolate place until Zionism created its government there, and the nations took pity on a disparate race of people who had nowhere to go. So they were everywhere, like another disparate race of people. Oh, Christians. See, but we don't have a nationalism because we are not of this world, remember? But they are. They're tied to a land from ancient times, biblical times. But Zionism decided it wanted to flex its muscle, kick out all the Islamic people, take back all its land. On the one hand, there might be a right. On the other hand, go back to the Gospels and see what Jesus said about his own people when he said to them, your house is desolate until you learn to say, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. Until you learn to bless me as your Savior, your religious and land connection and national and all of that, is done for. No longer was temple with an Aaronic priesthood the way this upstart rabbi, who was their God in human flesh, is the new way, the way it should be. Go to God to get to God. And not all other religions lead to him. Only Jesus saves. Soli Jesu salva. Thank you. So, there are two myths. One is all of the prophecies about the Jewish nation coming back to Messiah. A promise was made, it will be kept. The problem is we don't understand all the mechanisms involved. They come into play at the end of the book. In fact, there's a massive earthquake, and a whole lot of repenting is going on. Giving glory to God is going on. They're not shaking fists at the face. They are bowing the knee and realizing, oh dear, because they're looking upon him whom they pierced. See, when the guard ran from the tomb, they went to the Sanhedrin and said, such and such and such and such and such happened. And the Sanhedrin said, here, take the money, shut your mouth. It's in the scriptures. Go read it for yourself. They were bought to silence them. You will tell them that the disciples came and took the body while you were sleeping. And if this gets back to the governor, we'll cover for you. No, they didn't. They made sure it got back to the governor. Every one of those men on that watch, and anybody who knew them, was lynched, gone, crucified, killed, disappeared. No longer a Roman. They did. The Sanhedrin, the last thing they wanted was for that other piece of information, the resurrection, to ever get out there. Go back and read it for yourself. The then high priest had said, you people have no idea what's going on. You know nothing. It's more expedient for one man to die than for all of us to lose our positions. He died for their nation first and then for the world. Why? Because their nation was sitting on the planet. In order to die for the nation of Israel back then, Jesus would have to die for all of the planet so that all would have a shot at him as Savior. See, that's the truth. Go back, read it for yourself. What we preach now isn't, and our take on doctrine of election, and I've taught it. God help me. I hosted Daughter of Zion, and she taught it. The other set of God's chosen people is the new Israel. The Christians are the new Israel. We're the chosen. That's not true either. We are flock number 2, and Israel, the Semitic Israel, is flock number 1. Jesus said, I have other sheep I need to go deal with at some point and bring these folds together. Paul said, Jew, Gentile, no difference. Male, female, no difference. Slave and master, no difference. Races, no difference. Equal at the cross. Why? Jesus is the king, and we're all his subjects. It's a whole other ballgame. But if you break them up and pit them against each other and then make them work together and say, if you don't support Israel, God will curse your nation. Do you know that in the last days, that nation, quote-unquote Israel, would become a cup of trembling? And anybody that did support it would have problems? Go look that up. That's Old Testament. Cup of trembling. Google it. In the last days. All right. So, while there's nothing wrong with fundamentalism until it shuts out the Holy Spirit, replaces the truth with a lie, and this lie, by the way, this we're the chosen, evangelical fundamentalist, evangelical right side conservative minority that's now in the majority, that's now in the White House, that whole hot mess. And the entire church is behind it. All the prophetic movement is like, Trump, he's our man. If Trump can't do it, no one can. Funny how the Germans were singing the same song about Adolf, he's our man. If he can't do it, no one can. Do you know how Adolf got in? Economy. Do you know how Trump got in? Economy. 5 will get you 10. I wonder if there wasn't an immigrant crisis in Germany that was not helping the economy, namely the Semites. You know, the Poles, a lot of them were Jewish. A lot of them weren't. A lot of them were Greek Orthodox, not Catholic. And a lot of them were Catholic, not Protestant. Germany turned Lutheran. You have to really know your history and understand the storied past of the nations and their relationship with the Roman Catholic Church. And then when Luther turned on Protestantism, how that played out. Right. So until we became the chosen, we were preaching the gospel and we were helping out our fellow man. And that all changed in the 20s, the 30s, the 40s, the 50s. You betcha. Talking about this and that.wordpress.com. Go back and look at the Big Reveal 2 Under the Hood when we talked about the prosperity movement and the tradition of tithing with Bob Newman, the doctrine of acceptance with Bob Newman, and dominionism that we did. Number 14, to press for the spread of religious cults such as the Muslim Brotherhood, Muslim fundamentalism, the Sikh, and carry out experiments of the Jim Jones and, quote-unquote, Son of Sam type murders. It is worth noting that the late Ayatollah Khomeini was a creation of British Intelligence Military Intelligence Division 6, commonly known as MI6. Or M16, or M16? I thought it was MI6. All right, as I reported in my 1985 work, quote-unquote, what really happened in Iran? Okay, where do I start with this? You have to go back to Muhammad. Before Muhammad, there was no Islam. There was a loosely and fighting band of Arabic groups, and they all had their favorite god, the Kaaba, in Mecca. According to some sources, the Kaaba was not always considered the house where Abraham and Ishmael lived. It was the place where the effigies of the various deities were. And would you like to know who the top deity was? The moon god, the one that Islam uses in its crescent. It's the moon god. Muhammad did a brilliant strategy that united all of these warring factions under one banner, Islam. Except that when he died, and to listen to, I was listening to a documentary on Genghis Khan. Apparently, Muhammad died of dysentery, some island, because the Mongols had ran him off to there. I'm not sure about that, but it's called The Secret History of the Mongols. Whatever. The myths of the Genghis Khan story. Some of the myths of the Genghis Khan story is that Genghis Khan was a brilliant tactician, and he did unite his tribes. He did for the Mongols what Muhammad did for the Arabs. Say what the Qin dynasty did for China, Qin Ha, China, and what I can't remember the name of the dynasty that united Japan. Instead of warring factions, you came to a national entity, creating borders, creating a state, the state of Japan, the state of China. Anyway, what we then had after his death was infighting, and here's how the infighting goes. There are three brands of Muslims: Sunni, Shia, and Sufi. We can eliminate Sufis right off the bat, the whirling dervishes, quote-unquote, sort of contemplate your navel. They're the spirituals, the mystics. They don't get heavily involved in the politics, all right? Leaving us with the Sunni and the Shia. All right, so Muhammad had his progeny, and his progeny had progeny. Somewhere along the line, one prince was picked to be the new it man to keep the thing going. And there was some skullduggery that eliminated that said prince, I think killed him, and another less favored prince took over. He was Sunni. The Sunnis are the lords, the masters. The Shia are the generals, the militaristic arm. So whenever you see things like ISIS, like Hamas, like Al-Qaeda, and the guy that ran it, they're Shia. They're what's known as fundamentalist Muslim. Here's the thing. It's how do you read your Quran? How do you live the pillars of Islam? How does it read to you? We have the same problem in Christendom. How do you read the Bible? Catholicism will take it in one direction. Protestantism will take it in another. People who've been touched by the Holy Spirit will take it in yet another direction. Why? Because these are written works. And unless the God of that written work touches you, you're not going to be on his page. The God of the written work for the Bible is the one true and living God, creator of all other beings, gods, what have you. The Quran is Muhammad's writing that he got from the angels. The Night of Power, he's in a cave, and he gets nearly killed by this being, this angel, this messenger, shows up and says, recite, recite! Muhammad's he made his bread as a very successful caravan manager, which took him all over the area, which also got him involved with Christians, monks. One had a prophecy over him. He'd be a great religious leader. That never left the man. He was a dreamer. He was a mystic. He had an encounter in that cave. And in that cave on that night of power, he nearly died before he could get the thing to tell him what to recite. After that, this encounter after encounter after encounter began to lead his life. The prime god and his tribe took the ascendancy, later splitting into the Sunnis, which are the lords. They're the nobility. Almost all the Saudi princes are Sunni. They're the people who give you algebra, that give you our numerical system with 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. They were scientists. They weren't Christian. A lot of the Arabic script got translated into and is a part of English, a part of other nations' languages. Before Christendom truly became a big deal, these people were already infiltrating most of the world as traders and as scientists, and they enriched the world, but they also preached a false truth. So this is still the business, and if you've noticed, none of the other so-called Muslim areas, like Egypt is Muslim, the United Arab Emirates, which is Muslim, will not take the Palestinians. Nobody wants them, but they're all Muslim. Where's the love, bruh? Come on. You wear the hijab. You have the 5 pillars. You do pilgrimage. You go on the Hajj. Where's the love? Call it what it is. This whole business started with a raid to piss Israel off, to get the Zionist state to go for the bait, and it worked. And we got to suck the United States in right alongside. Why? Well, we don't want to be cursed by the living God because we're not standing with Israel. To get to be a state, guess who the swing vote was? We were. The United States was a swing vote. In fact, they were helping push Zionism. When you get into the political with the spiritual, you start going into all sorts of cow pies. It ain't pleasant. It really ain't pleasant. So we're just in the middle of an attempt for a global jihad. What they're doing right now is a jihad in the Middle East. They're just not saying it. The Palestinians of Gaza are a sacrifice to Allah, the moon god. Allah is the tippity top of all the other little deities. Go look this up on the internet. I took a course on ancient histories, ancient religions, the inception of how Islam came to be, from the guy who was a Islamic studies professor who was an advisor to one of our administrations, we're talking political administrations, for working with overseas policies for Islamic people. And he flat tells me there was this tete-a-tete. So there's been a rift between Sunni and Shia for a long time. The Shia have been spoiling to take over their bosses and be on top, but they all bow to the same God, the up one. Can you tell me what's more up in the sky at night in the desert than the moon? Hello. That's right. That's all it's about, folks. And yes, he saw Jesus as a prophet, a teacher, not God, not Savior. Get it? Folks, there is a whole lot more to this. We're only on 15 of 21 items that are being foisted upon us to cause us to be so destabilized as to, well, play into the hands of the book of the Revelation of Jesus Christ. So, we're going to have to continue this in our next episode. In our next episode, we will be continuing on the Big Reveal 2 Under the Hood, looking at our engine a little further, going down this list of, shall we say, must-haves to wreck a world. So, for this and that, until then,